Finally, we take up the last subtopic, circular tracks. As the name tracks suggests, the context is going to be that of athletes or joggers or runners running on a track, right? They could either run in the opposite direction or they could run in the same direction. While the name is circular track, the actual shape need not be a perfect circle. It could be an oval, or for that matter, it could even be a square track. The concepts are going to remain same. The general perception is that these type of questions are difficult. What makes them difficult is the fact that if these athletes continue running, then they would keep meeting each other over and over and over again, right? And hence there could be a lot of types of questions. So based upon the context given, let's first slot these questions into different categories so that we can comprehend questions faster and attempt them easier, right? The first set of questions could relate to a measure of time. For example, after how much time would the two athletes meet for the first time? And another question could be, after how much time would the two athletes meet for the first time at the starting point? Hope you understand the difference between the two. In the first question, they are saying two athletes would start from at a certain time. After how much time would they meet for the first time? They could meet anywhere on the circular track. Whereas the second question is also asking for the first meeting, a time taken. However, that first meeting has to be at the same point where they started, right? So appreciate the difference. When we solve questions, we will let's say explain it further, right? So the third question could be a general question. Find the time taken for the nth meeting, second meeting, third meeting, fourth meeting. And in this series of questions, a tougher one would be find the number of times that they have met. The second set of questions out over here is not related to a measure of time, it's related to a measure of distance. That is, they are asking us the location of the nth meeting. Where on the circular track? Find the point on the circular track. It could be like measured clockwise from the starting point. At what distance does the nth meeting take place? Right? And if I keep putting n as 1, 2, 3, 4, then we can generalize the question in how many distinct points are there where the two athletes could possibly meet. So here we are talking of find all the points where they could meet. And is it going to be any point on the circle? Let's look at it in the question. Finally, we'll end the session by finding the relevance of the sum or the difference of number of rounds done by the athlete. This approach can make these questions very easy. Let me end the introduction by just saying, if the question is tough because they keep meeting over and over and over again, the solution also lies here. Something happens and then we just take a repetition of that, like a multiple of that for the second, third, fourth, fifth occurrence of the time, right? So don't think of it as too complex a question. Just think you have to just find the first meeting and then take a multiple of it, right? So let's get going. If I give you this question that two friends A and B are separated by a distance of 1200 meters. They start moving towards each other at a speed of 30 meter per second and 20 meter per second. After how much time will they meet? This question this late in the session should be an absolute sitter, irritating one, right? Obviously the first guy is going to cover 30, the second guy will cover 20 in the same time. Right? So the relative speed is going to be 50 meters and relative speed is given to me as 50 meters per second. Distance is given to me and I want to find time. So we just need to apply time is equal to distance by speed. That's it. So they would meet after 24 seconds, right? It should be a straight question. Now, instead of they being separated by a straight road, what if I just change that situation to they're at the same point but the road that they travel is a little curved one. However, mark you the length of the entire curved road is 1200 meters. Rest everything remains same. A moves at a speed of 30, B moves at a speed of 20 towards each other. Right? These are measures of speed. So, would that really change the question dramatically? it is still that A is going to cover 30 and B in the same time will cover 20. A in the next second will cover 30, B in the next second will cover 20. He's again going to cover 30, again going to cover 20. So what I'm hinting at is in the same second, again they're coming closer by 50 meters per second. So everything remains the same. Relative speed remains 50 meters, distance is 1200 meters, so everything remains same. And the extreme case of this curved road is the case of circular tracks. So imagine A and B to be right together. A and B are almost together. However, to meet, they have to travel along a circular track. Right? A traveling in the anti-clockwise direction, B traveling in the clockwise direction. A travels at a speed of 30 meters per second, B travels at 20 meters per second, and 1200 is the circumference. We will call it the track length, right? Is the track length. So this becomes your first standard question. A and B are standing at the same point on a circular track running in opposite directions. So first we'll take up the case of opposite direction, easier to understand, right? The track length is 1200, and then there could be a lot of questions, most of them based upon the meeting point, right? So let's solve this now. Let's consider the first meeting. So we have seen that the time, measure of time, one of the first questions is going to be about time. Now time is always given as distance by speed, and in the case of circular tracks, distance refers to the track length and speed refers to the relative speed. So in our case, the track length is 1200, relative speed is 30 plus 20, that is 1200 by 50. We have done this calculation earlier also, is 25 seconds. So they would meet for the first time in 25 seconds. So it is identical to the linear one, right? Two people starting. It's just that instead of a straight road, they are going along a curved road. That's the only difference, right? It makes no difference, right? The second type of measure questions relate to distances run. But then they would not talk about distance. Here time is very apparent. When, after how much time, it becomes a clear question. But distance is not very apparent. The questions will start with the phrase where. Where is the meeting point, right? We need to understand this is just a question of distance. So let's find the distance run by A. Distance run by A. And the speed of A is 30 meters per second, and we have a time of 24 seconds for the first meeting. So he will run a distance of 720 meters. Now, if I start looking about, we are talking about A. A is anti-clockwise. So A starts at this point and is going to run 720. Now, until you don't get the perspective of the track length, you would not know where as the 720. Is the 720 just out till here? Remember, you have to understand that the full track length is 1200. So 720 can't be so small. So 720 is what part relative to 1200 meters. So remember, the distance run in meters is not so very easy to understand. The distance run in number of rounds is going to be very, very convenient, right? Let me explain that again. So I just want to find that point. Obviously, unless we don't have a precise measuring instrument, we can't point it out. But then let's see, what is it? Where is it? In which hemisphere? At least let's find that. Oh, this 1200, so the half of it will be 600 and we need to cover 720. So we'll obviously go beyond 600. But are we going to cross 3/4 of the point? There we come to that fraction of a round, 3/4 of a round. 3/4 of a round is going to be 600 and 300, 900. No, we are not going to cross 900. So we are somewhere here, right? How do we do this calculation faster? By only thinking of number of rounds. So 720 meters, I could say, is 720 out of 1200, which is 24 threes are 72, 25 fives are 3/5 of a round. So hereafter, all distances will be talked about in fraction of a round. Number of rounds, it could be a fraction also. 3/5 of a round. Let's see the distance run by B. Distance run by B. B B's speed is 20 meters per second. He has the same time, 24 seconds, right? Which is going to become 480 meters. And 480 meters is nothing but 480 by 1200 of a round. That is 24 twos are 25 fives are 2/5 of a round. Why does this help us is, it's very easy to plot 3/5 and 2/5 of a round. What do? We divide the round into 5 parts, and so if this is your starting point, 5 parts, the opposite will not come in. Let's say here and here. So that is 3 points and divide it equally, right? So divide it equally, so that we have the 5 points. So A is going to run 1/5, 2/5, 3/5. So A has reached out over here. B is going to run 1/5, 2/5. B has also reached the same point. So they are together, right? So we have found about the first meeting. We have seen after 24 seconds. We have located the point of the meeting. Now, the questions are difficult because if they continue running, so A is going to continue running, B will continue running in their respective direction. They are going to meet again. And if they yet continue, they are going to meet yet again, and so on and on. So, the most important learning, do not look at this as the first meeting. Whatever we did out over here, this full thing is the time after which they'll keep meeting, or rather let me put it here, right? This is, they keep meeting they keep meeting every, and this word, while it might be very simple, it's pretty important here to understand. Every 24 seconds is not the first meeting itself. After every 24 seconds, they would meet. Whenever A has run 3/5 of a round, they would obviously meet for the first time. But more important, whenever he has done 3/5 of a round, they would meet. Whenever A does 2/5 of a round further, they are going to meet. So this is the frequency of meeting. If you need another word, the frequency. So this thing, keep repeating, you'll get the second, third, fourth, fifth meeting, which is what we will learn next.